Hi, I'm Kinkas and I'm a synth DIY guy. Today we're going to take a look at the T-Zed oscillator from La 67 from Barcelona, Spain. I guess you can pronounce it La 67. Let me have a quick read over here at the page. T-Zed oscillator is an analog oscillator with through zero phase modulation. The core of the T-Zed is the SSI 2130 integrated circuit. Voltage controlled wave shape and phase modulation index allow for automated sonic versatility. And two separate frequency ranges mean the T-Zed can be used as an audio or CV source. It features simultaneous sine, triangle, saw, square, and variable shape outputs. Phase modulation input with bipolar index circuit. The frequency knob spans 10 octaves and the tune knob spans 1 octave, and unusually the wider span is the smaller knob, which I've seen many people express a preference for, to use the big knob for fine tuning. So that's what this module does. It has a hard sync input and it has a shape output which goes from sine to triangle to saw with a CV input and an attenuator, as well as the manual control. Frequency range in the high setting is from 10 Hz to 25 kHz, and in the low setting it's from 0.1 Hz to 200 Hz. This is a 12 HP module and it's just a really cool oscillator. So let's have a look at it. I've put it here on my test rack alongside Mordax data so that we can actually have a look at these waveforms. Let's turn up the frequency some. Now the shape knob is in the middle here. In the middle it's a triangle, but if you turn it towards the left, you get this really nice sine wave. Right? The bigger tune knob here is only a 1 octave range, so that's the fine tune, right? And this one goes pretty wide range, right? All right. Now the shape, it starts as a sine wave like that. As you turn it, it goes through triangle. Now it's sort of a shark fin and ends up as a full-fledged saw. So this module by itself has plenty of timbral variation that is controllable via CV as well. So for example, let me plug in an output from my Orbit 3 Chaos oscillator into the shape input over here. See how it's oscillating between various different wave shapes. Now let's make it faster. So that's super cool feature right there. But that's not the main thing about this module. It does also have square, saw, triangle, and sine wave individual outputs as well, which is nice, right? But let's go back to the shape out here. Let's get that modulation out for now and go into the sine wave here. And now what this module is really known for, it's named for, is the through zero phase modulation. Let's get a sine wave from the Maca filter, also by La 67. That will be the next module we'll be reviewing in the channel. So we're using it right now in full self oscillation as a sine wave oscillator. I'm going to put it in to the mod input over here, right? And there's the attenuator for that, which is the mod index. So as I plug it in, you don't hear anything. As I start bringing the index knob up, we start hearing how that audio rate sine wave from the Maca filter is modulating the phase. And look at that wave shape over there. Isn't that cool? That's totally different looking, at least, from frequency modulation. Right? And I can still apply shape changes. You really hear that, right? Very cool. Now, here's another level of modulation that this module has, and that's the index CV, right? So what I'm doing here by turning up the amplitude of the modulation signal as it modulates the frequency, the phase of the module, that is also modulatable. So I can send, for example, filter 8 here is acting as a LFO, and I can put that into the index CV input, and now basically it's like a VCA into the mod input, right? And it's an attenuverter, so in the middle you get nothing, and to the right you get everything, and to the left you get the inversion of the incoming modulation signal. Right? Yeah, let's make that a little louder, a little higher amplitude LFO here. Now we can really hear. Very cool, right? Now let's modulate that wave shape again with the chaos oscillator. Shape CV is just an attenuator. There it goes. I can change the center here of the shape parameter so it doesn't go all the way into harsh land. There he goes. Very cool. Let's shut this up by sticking a CV source into the level of my VCA here. I'm using Morph 4 as a quad VCA, but I'm only using one channel right now. And I'm sending this step 8 sequencer signal into Ornament and Crime as an analog shift register. So basically what it does is it quantizes, and then it shifts each step over to the right side. The first channel is modulating the CV, the volt per octave input of the T-Zed oscillator, while the second output here of my Ornament and Crime is modulating the Maca filter, which again is acting as a sine wave oscillator right now. So as I turn on the clock, we should start hearing this sequence with a lot of timbral variation, and all of that is coming from the T-Zed itself. It's going straight through VCA to the output. Ah, listen to that. Let's turn down the LFO here and make this a little more subtle. Yeah, isn't that wonderful? I love it. Absolutely love this sound. It's kind of Buchla-esque. There goes the mod index. And that Maca filter modulating that input there. Let's change the sequence up a little bit. Maybe a little faster. Hey, why don't we control the speed of the clock with a little randomness? Try a little randomness into the rate here of my contour 1. And we could also vary the length of the clock, the length of the envelope rather. Over here. So cool. Just put a little reverb on it and you're golden, right? You can also add some modulation sources to these analog. Oh, those aren't those are outputs, not inputs. Okay, never mind. Yeah, now I'm sending generate 3 as a modulation source into the step 8. It's not really going to work perfectly because it's going through the ornament prime. I guess you'd have to go straight into the T-Zed volt per octave input in order to get that. Like that. Super cool. Got this right here. Cool. Now this is the step 8 directly without going through the ornament and crime. Cool. Alright, let's send that back to the ornament and crime, and the ornament and crime back into the T-Zed. There you go. Super cool. What a nice oscillator. It's pretty too. So white with this interesting array of black knobs. And it's super easy to build. We're gonna see how to build it, but basically it's just a panel component because all of the electronics come pre-soldered in the SMD board. Now, before we go away, let's check it out as a LFO. So I'm going to put this in low mode here, and we're going to take the core output of the generate 3, and we're going to stick that into our VCA instead, right? And we can take that volt per octave, stick it in there too. Now we're going to use the output of the T-Zed in low mode as an LFO. And remember, it's still being modulated, the shape, wave shape, the index, all of that's still being modulated. So it's not just an LFO. I mean, of course you can use it as just a simple LFO. If you just use like the sine wave output, for example, and no modulation, then that's what it is. But right now, we're getting all of that modulation stuff. And we can actually reset it anytime we want. We can grab a gate output here from the step 8 and put in the sync, and that's gonna restart the LFO at the 7th step every time, or on the first step. So that makes it more repetitive, right? It makes it more predictable. Not completely, because the modulation sources are not synced, right? But let's remove that, because it's more fun, for me at least, more interesting to have it unsynced. Now let's modulate the frequency. The volt per octave input here. Super cool. This is fun. Very straightforward. No menus, no hidden functions. Just sees what you get. And super intuitive and fun to play with. So that's it for the T-Zed. Hope you liked the video, hope you liked the module. Stay tuned for the Yumaka filter video that's coming next. If you'd like to see how this module is built, just keep watching, because that's what's gonna happen now. Let's build it. Alright, let's build this thing. As you pull everything out of the little baggie, you will notice all of the hardware components and the PCB with all of the SMD already pre-soldered onto it. And here's the panel, nice white panel. And let's have a look at the potentiometers just to see the values, and it seems they're all the same value, so good, we won't have to worry about where they go. Now let's put in the power connector. That's the only part that goes on the back side of the board. I like to solder just one pin first and then make sure that it's flush, and then solder on the rest. Now let's plug in the trim pots for calibration. Check that you're putting the right ones in the right spots and that the screws are facing outward so that you can actually get to them, and solder them on. Okay, now let's plug in the potentiometers. These don't get fastened to the panel, they're tall trimmers, so you have to really make sure they're nice and straight and flush so that they don't rub against the sides of their holes on the panels. Now plug in the jacks. And the switch. The switch doesn't really hold fast too well, so we're gonna solder it on before putting on the panel. Now we slip on the panel, make sure that those potentiometers are not rubbing up against any of the sides, and tighten the nuts on the jacks. You can turn it around and solder up the jacks and the pots and finish the switch. So let's just slip on the knobs now. These knobs have removable caps, so you don't have to worry which direction you put them in at first, because once they're in, that's when you're actually going to put on the caps with the indicators. So now just turn everything counterclockwise and make sure that all the little lines line up. that's it. Easy peasy, super cool module. Real easy to build. Let's calibrate it. Alright, so let's calibrate the T-Zed oscillator. We'll start by tuning it to 1 volt per octave. I've already removed all the knurlies so I can take it out of the rack. We'll have a look at the back here, actually on the side, and here are the trim pots that we need to adjust. So first we're going to tune it to a C. Whatever note, doesn't really matter because we need to check just the octaves. So this is B0. Well, A is fine, A1. Right? Now on my keyboard, which is off screen, I'm going to go up an octave. And as you can see, it's out of tune, it's a little low. Right? And as you go higher, it gets lower. So we need to adjust the volt per octave trim pot so that we see an even flatter note. So see, that's going down. So that looks like I'm doing the wrong thing. I'm going the wrong direction. But you gotta remember that as much as that note is going flat on octave 3, it's going flatter on octave 1. So we can make the adjustment. Here's A1. I need to make it even flatter. Let's do it some more. It may be that this oscillator is different. Let's go to a C here. C2, C3 is still flat. Alright, I'm gonna still trust my experience here and try it one more time before I change the direction. There's C2, let's go up an octave. Oh, yeah, no, that's interesting. So I guess this oscillator is different than all the other oscillators I've encountered in my life. You actually do want to tune up when it's down. So just gotta keep going back and forth. You go back to the low note, make sure that's a C or whatever note you chose, and then go up and adjust accordingly. So now we're trying the other direction, right? So let's try this. Oh, that seems very close. Let's go back to a C here. This is C2. I'm gonna jump to a C5. Oh, that's very close. I think we only need to go a little bit higher. Like about there. Go back to the almost there. Almost there. Let's actually go to an even higher octave now. We'll go to C7. Alright. C6 rather. Yeah, we need to go a little bit higher. And back to... Ah, look at that. Now it looks like the difference is identical. Okay. Let's turn down the volume a little bit. This is getting a little annoying. Wow, that's very good tracking. Very good tracking. Now let's keep going. Let's move to a different range. And just make sure that in the high frequencies it's still in tune, because we do have a high frequency trimmer as well. There's 7, here's 8. I don't even see 8 anymore. Out of range, weird. I'm gonna go ahead and call it calibrated. Looks good to me. Now, there are a couple other things. I think there's one more trim pot to adjust, which is the mod bias, I think. Let's see. I have here the manual on my computer screen. It says set the base frequency via the base frequency trimmer. Approximately 30 hertz there. And now the mod index potentiometer, which is this one over here. This one should not have any effect on the frequency. So as you can see, turning it does have an effect on the frequency. We need to turn this little trim pot over here until we see that turning the mod index has no effect. Now it has a lot of effect, so we need it go the other direction here. Okay. Still affects it somewhat. Let's go up a little higher. Still affects it somewhat. Move it higher. Now I'm going to move the index knob again. Ooh. This looks promising. It looks like a very, very minute variation of the frequency. Let's go up a little higher. There you go. Maybe just a tiny bit more. Now let's go back down a little bit. Yeah, this looks like about as good as I'm gonna get it. Nearly no pitch variation at all from turning the index knob. See, the frequency stays there on that 67, 68 decimals. Good, so it seems like we've successfully calibrated the T-Zed oscillator. Alright, that's it for today. Hope you liked the video. Stay tuned for the Maca filter coming next. And that's it. See you soon and stay noisy.